I actually have a page on my website called Liars, Cheats, and Scoundrels that is about dealing with narcissists and divorce. And because of that page on my website, I get a lot of calls from people. So I do have kind of a specialty in dealing with narcissists. My advice is that it is going to be a long, painful divorce, and don't expect it to be done quick, and don't expect it to be painless. And not unlike the advice with dealing with bullies, you need to be aggressive, and you've got to be careful with them. They're very dangerous.
When you get into the annals of conflict cases where you're facing a spouse instead of trying to resolve a situation, narcissism has got to be part of the heavy hitters of all of them. Substance abuse, general mental illness, physical abuse, and narcissism not only interplay, but they would be the key reasons why relationships can't just redefine themselves and move along. So have I ever? It's more like if it's a high conflict case, when is it not dealing with somebody suffering from some level of narcissism? There's this forever dissatisfied nature that a narcissist has, an inflated sense of their own worth and self-being that's founded on a deflated sense of worth and self-being. And so they'll never be satiated. They can't believe anything that is because the house built on sand. Narcissism is probably the primary carcinogenic to marriages and relationships.
I think the question should be, have I faced an opposing spouse who's not a narcissist? Because I hear so often that my spouse is a narcissist, and sometimes they're right, sometimes they're not. I'm not a psychologist, so I don't know offhand who's a narcissist. But we certainly have faced people that are narcissistic, that have control issues, that feel like they're always right. And the only way, in my opinion, that you can resolve those cases, well, there are two ways. One is you go to trial and you prove your case and you show the judge why your client's the victim and entitled to money. The only way to settle those cases, though, which is the other way to resolve a case, is to let them win. And of course, we don't just give in and say, take whatever you want, but they've got to feel like they've won, And it takes a lot of listening. There's a Chinese proverb, you learn more when you listen than when you talk. So you listen, you go to mediation and you ask, what do you want? What is it that makes you feel like you win? And sometimes I want her out of the house, or I want the big screen TV, or I want to be called the joint custodial parent, or I want to make the decision about where my child goes to school. And you take that and you work with it. Okay, it's important to you that you're recognized as the smarter, educational, focused parent. Our client will agree that you can make the educational decisions as long as you pay for private school, and as long as you give her some ability to weigh in. Like, you can choose 3 schools and let her choose one of those, or let her choose 3 and you get to make the final decision. But you'll be the final decision maker, right? That's what you want. You've scared her into giving up that right. I think the only way to resolve a case against a narcissist is to let them feel like they've won, or to just know it's going to be a fight and prepare for trial, and find a lawyer that's ready to go to trial. A lot of lawyers don't like trial. A lot of lawyers are afraid of going to court. If you're fighting a narcissist and you don't want to give in, you're going to have a trial. And, judges are hired for a reason. We pay judges as taxpayers. You have a right to use them. Let them make a decision. If your spouse is a narcissist and won't compromise, have a trial.
So what tends to happen when you do what I do is initially I don't have any contact with the opposing spouse because I'm not their attorney. They've got a representative that's representing them. But I do hear a lot from my clients that their spouse is a narcissist. And they describe very carefully why they think that they're a narcissist. So with those folks that are telling me their spouse is a narcissist, I generally will, a lot of times, have a meeting with that spouse, my client, and that spouse's therapist to talk through how they can better deal with going through the divorce with a narcissist. Because, my job isn't to tell them how to live their lives with everything else. My job is to help them through the divorce process. So I will generally want a meeting with therapist, my client, about how to handle narcissism when you have the spouse, how to handle a narcissistic parent with your children, how to advise your children on how to handle dad who's a narcissist or whatever it may be, that sort of thing. So I generally do that by meeting with the therapist and my client.
I have faced a number of cases where the opposing spouse is a narcissist, or more fairly, I should say, my client views their spouse as a narcissist. That word gets slung around a great deal. Some of the mental health professionals will, probably all would, if they're being honest, explain it, that some level of narcissism is essential to a healthy psyche. This is the old, if I am not for me, then who will be for me? It's when that notion of I got to have some self-preservation, which is a normal, healthy response, when that predominates above all else. And then it is just a grotesque scenario. When we get the true narcissism, and we have a few of those cases pending right now, you're always having to tell the client, candidly, hunker down. We're going to be in this for the long haul. These are not easy cases to resolve. The narcissist personality is not going to be amenable to responding to logic or reason the way that a non-narcissist or a more healthy individual will be responsive to that. And so the idea that we're going to reason our way through the process typically is just not going to work. The narcissist also is not going to accept responsibility for anything that has gone wrong or is going wrong in their marriage, in their parenting, in whatever that may be. And then most hurtful probably, but it's a little harsh statement, but I think it's insightful. The narcissist views the individuals in their life, the spouse, the children, the relatives, co-workers, and so forth, similar to the way a Christmas tree would view the ornaments that are hanging on it. They are adornments. They aren't really a part of it. They're moved, they're taken on, put on, as the narcissist chooses and deems fit. They are not connecting with these people as human beings. And that's a tragically sad situation. But the only way to handle the cases that way, at least in my experience, are try to find what leverage that you have, and also get the court involved early, like you would a bullying situation, and often again with a Rule 16 conference. And you don't go in and say, Judge, the other opposing side has a narcissist as a client, but you can identify some of the issues that you're having with discovery, with a variety of things as it may be. And then you don't threaten the other side. Threatening, cajoling, begging, asking, pleading is utterly useless. Whatever leverage you have, and of course I'm speaking of legal, ethical leverage that you have, it becomes an action and consequence. If the other party does not do these things that they are legally or ethically required to do, then we will take the following action, and then you execute on that action. A narcissist has to know that whatever stated consequence will follow from an action or inaction is actually going to happen. You aren't going to threaten it, you are simply going to do it. Not emotionally, we're not angry, we're not upset, we're simply following through on what we say. That seems to be the most effective way. The last piece is that probably a judge will have to decide the case. We probably aren't going to be able to settle it unless the client is willing to accept less than what they should be getting.
Many family lawyers, including myself, have had ample experience dealing with opposing parties who are narcissists. Now, my first advice to clients when they tell me about their spouse's personality, I just said, look, hope is not a strategy. This person will use the procedure and the process of divorce to cause pain and suffering for everyone around them. There's no question about that. So expect the worst, plan everything out, and build a strategy with your lawyer specific to your spouse's idiosyncrasies. Put it nicely. Always remember, hope is not a strategy. You and your lawyer have to craft a strategy that's specific, tailored, and engineered to get you where you want to be as soon as possible with as little stress as possible, but understand that stress is going to be intentionally caused by the other spouse as much as possible and as often as possible.
Don't believe a word they say. Fact check everything. Narcissists tend to exaggerate or lie, flat out lie, to make themselves look better in the eyes of the court, in the eyes of their lawyer, in the eyes of the other parent or spouse. So really fact check with people like that, because they're the victim. Narcissists are always the victim, and it was always somebody else's fault.
When you're new to family law and you're dealing with a narcissist, it takes a while to begin to realize that there are patterns that you can just simply expect. And that in dealing with a narcissist, you, again, are in that role of trying to figure out whether you're playing your game or you're playing their game. And it's really, really important, especially as a new advocate for a family law person, that you help your client remember your job is to tell their story, not to respond to someone else's story they're trying to lay upon you. And the voice of what you have has to run that way. It's also important to help steel your client to understand that this pattern will not change. Narcissism is a fundamental personality defect. And for the most part, once you've tied into a narcissist, that is the relationship you have. And you're not ever going to fix it, change it, or do much to improve it much. What you're going to improve is how you respond to it and how you train your family to respond to it.
I think you get peace by preparing for battle. I think narcissists will try to scare you into submission or try to act like they're not worried about it. And I've had it. Believe me, I've had a lawyer as the opposing client tell me, "You want to litigate? Fine, I'll litigate." And I sat back and I thought, I get paid by the hour. It's not a threat to me to say we're going to drag this out and go to court. I get to make more money, so it doesn't bother me. I think the way you get underneath the skin of a narcissist is you don't let them bother you. This is your world. If you're a lawyer, even if it's your first time facing a narcissist, you know the system better than the narcissist does. You know the system better than they do, and you know the judges, you know the lawyers, you know the law better. Be confident. The only one that's going to lose is the narcissist and your client if it goes all the way to court. But a narcissist is just a person, right? They're just a person. And judges like to help the victims. Narcissists don't usually come off as victims. And if you walk into court, every day that I go to court, I'd rather walk in with the victim who needs the court's help than the narcissist who's going to be just fine with or without the court's help. If I'm the judge, I'm going to say to the narcissist, "You'll make money, you'll be fine. Ma'am, sir, I'm sorry you've been through this. I'm going to make sure that you're okay and you get a little bit of a head start." So I would tell the person facing a narcissist, don't let it get to you. Being a narcissist is not an advantage. You have the advantage if the other side is a narcissist, because there's the old saying, the easiest witness to have on the other side is the one where you simply say, "Sir, state your name," and you just sit back and listen to him go on and on and on.
Get help from an experienced family law attorney. The young lawyer needs it whether they realize that or not. It doesn't necessarily mean they have to sign someone on as co-counsel or as first chair or second chair, but someone that they can go to for insight and advice. These can be very difficult cases. They can also be very stressful, emotional cases. They tend to consume energy and time that is vastly disproportionate to the issue that's involved. And it really can be helpful to have an older attorney who's been doing this a long time to provide insight. Get help from someone more experienced.
I don't know that the advice really is any different than I would give to my clients and myself. Be prepared to be in it for the long haul. Don't trust them. Document everything. Here's, I guess, something that I would say. Be scrupulous with your communication with your client. Because what a narcissist is very savvy at doing is getting in their spouse's head. Your lawyer doesn't know what he or she is doing. Your lawyer is just trying to take your money. Your lawyer is creating, you need to trust me because I will take care of you. Your lawyer's just trying to take your money, blah, 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 whatever the case may be. And the way that needs to be countered is the lawyer needs to maintain an exceptionally good level of communication with the client to preserve the level of trust. If you don't return the client's phone calls and you create a vacuum, the narcissistic spouse will move into that vacuum and will win the client's allegiance, so to speak, and you will lose out in terms of your ability to help the client. So that's the best advice I'd give to a newer lawyer.
My best advice for young family lawyers who are opposing a narcissist for the first time is don't delay. If you set time deadlines, make the deadlines. If you tell the opposing counsel you want to have information and documents within a 30-day time period, follow up on day 31. Okay, maybe even send a reminder before that. Narcissists will try to take advantage of his or her opposing counsel's failure to follow up and failure to follow up on important details. So the little things become incredibly important, especially time.
So there are a couple of negotiating tactics that work with a narcissist. One is the walkout, right? You just walk out. It's sort of harder and easier when you do a mediation by Zoom. You can just click by and you're gone. Of course, they can get you back on. There's that old, I'm going to walk right by their office, see where they're sitting in the room, and I'm going to wave goodbye and we're going to leave. They've lost all their negotiation power. They can't negotiate with an empty room. So walking out is the ultimate, sort of drop the mic kind of moment. But standing your ground, just saying no, to me, I'd rather kill them with kindness. I'd rather say, I'm here, I'll listen to you, because I learn when I'm listening. Let them feel like they're convincing me. I don't mind if the narcissist on the other side thinks that they're getting me on their side. And it's crazy how sometimes you hear people say, I think that lawyer likes me on the other side. Sometimes I do. It doesn't matter to my job whether I like him or not, but they're just people. They're going through divorce, so let him or her talk, let him or her be heard, and then I can figure out what is it that's gonna make that person go away. If they feel like they won, or they feel like they got hurt, or they feel like they convinced me that my client is a bad person, I say, okay, I appreciate it, I understand everything you're saying, and I can understand how you feel, and let us think about it and come back with an answer. I don't have to fight for fight's sake. It's not my life, it's their life. So if they want to yell at me and tell me how bad my client is, they can tell me all they want. I'm still going to do my job. Thank you. You told me what a horrible person I represent, but you know what? He or she's paying my bill, and I'm going to go to court with him or her, and we're going to do everything we can to win. But if you want to settle the case, I'll talk to her about maybe compromising a little bit. You do that. Happy to,
The go-to negotiating tactic in dealing with a narcissist is to explain to them exactly how they're right, hopefully sculpt the conversation so it's their idea, and to stand in astonishment when they've suggested something so utterly brilliant as to divide the marital estate in half.
My strategy is to get trial dates, to work up my case, to make an offer and say, this is our offer. If you want to accept it, we're done. If not, we'll see you in court. I generally find, again, not unlike boys, that if you remain very strident and firm, that more often than not, they'll either cave in or you'll try the case sooner rather than later. If you negotiate with these guys for 3 years and then figure out they're not negotiating in good faith, you just burn 3 years and hundreds of thousands of dollars. So get it to court early and as promptly as you can.
My favorite negotiating tactics when opposing a narcissist, two categories. Number one, I am going to explain to my client all the different ways a narcissist can create a negative negotiating framework. For example, one of the common techniques for narcissists is to offer a certain amount of, say, alimony, and then 2 weeks later say, well, you didn't take that offer, so I'm going to offer you 15% less per month. And if you don't agree to that, I'm going to offer you 15% less off of that. So we call that backing up, right? So if my client knows the different ways that a narcissist or anybody can negotiate in it from a negative perspective, then it's easier to deal with when it happens, right? And there's probably 25 or so, depending on how you count it, tactics that can fall into that category. And I've presented numerous seminars on that. We call them Machiavellian negotiating tactics. So first is knowledge. If you know what's going on and you predict what's going to happen, then your client's going to be a lot more comfortable because you have a response. You see the tactic for what it is, and then you come back in a very stately, solid, well thought out way because you know it's coming. Second, consider mirroring their tactics. So when they play a childish game like reducing an alimony offer after 2 weeks because the settlement wasn't completed in their time frame, right? Well, do the same thing. Well, my demand just went up 15%. Right? So they're faced with the similar childishness. And that's probably just going to be in a letter between the lawyers anyway, right? In a mediation setting, a strong mediator is going to go, no, you're not going to do that. I'm not even communicating that, all right? But the point is, know the tactics, mirror them if need be, and that may make the narcissist incensed, or it's never going to make them, it's never going to placate them. Keep that in mind. But you're sending a message that you're not going to be manipulated by negative negotiating tactics.